Hi, my name's Phil. I like talking about politics, and as it's Europe Day, let's catch up with the latest on Brexit. And hard Brexit supporting Tory MP Paul Scully has recently claimed that Brexit's days are numbered because Brexit voters are dying off. He says with the next referendum, it's going to be Generation Z in charge of things. And at this point, I and others have been making for some point. Yes, we're trying to make the positive case for rejoining the EU in order to hasten the process. But the process is heading in that direction anyway. Father Time is seeing to that. Brexit, it's not like conservatism. We know that older people tend towards right-wing voting in a lot of countries, the UK included, because people tend towards favouring conservative parties as they hit middle age and beyond, because that's the point at which they're no longer struggling. They've got a bit of money. They've got their own place. They're starting to think in terms of taxes and things like that. Mind you, this trend is being bucked in both the UK and the USA at the moment. But there has been a general trend towards some people changing their political preferences later in life, which causes this generational flip. That's not the case with Brexit. There is nothing about views on the EU which changes with age. Brexit support was driven largely by a particular generation. And when you consider that the result was really, really close, it was never going to take more than a generation to swing the views the other way. In fact, when people talk about the 52% who voted leave, they talk about them as if they're still there, that they still exist. They don't exist anymore. Not only because some have seen that Brexit is not going to deliver what they promised, but because so many have died off. Way more Brexit voters have died than Remain voters. Statistically, we are very close now to there being as many Remain voters alive today as Leave voters. Then you add in the new generation of voters who were too young to vote in 2016 and who are largely pro-EU. And if it were possible to rejoin the EU easily, a referendum to do so would stand an excellent chance of winning this time. Apart from anything else, we definitely have better people leading the Rejoin campaign than we allowed to run the Remain campaign. John Curtis, a noted pollster, believes that our politics could be ready for a referendum in the next 16 years. Now, note, he's not saying in 16 years. People are going, what do you sooner than that, Phil? Yeah, so do I. He's not saying in 16 years, he's saying in the next 16 years. There are uncertainties. He's having to model attitudes and the way they're going. There's a lot of uncertainty in that. But like I say, if we want to hasten the date, we need to make the positive case for it. And I don't just mean to politicians. They already know the positive case. Even most Tory MPs know that. They always did. We need to persuade more of the public. The major issues we have right now in terms of public attitudes is as follows. First, people don't consider Brexit a top priority for the government to deal with. The top priorities are things like the cost of living, the economy in general, the NHS, housing, things like that. But, and you'll say to yourself, hang on. But all those things are made worse by Brexit. If we reverse Brexit, we could help improve all of those things. Yes. Now persuade your friends and colleagues of that and we can make headway. Because most don't realise that. Hence why Brexit is not considered a top issue by the vast majority. Second, we can't actually just join the EU quickly or under the same terms as before. Even starting the process would have to come with an acknowledgement that it would take the best part of 10 years. We may have to adopt the euro, and we may, if Ireland is also in favour, need to join Schengen. Now, there are many of us whose only issue with that little list is the 10 years of accession, but we are not in tune necessarily with the majority of the public, at least not yet. The issue of currency and borders is a big one. And mark my words, never mind what polls say right now. If these moves began, the billionaire-owned media would instantly push scare stories. Look what they've done with asylum and immigration. They drove concern to fever pitch just in time for the Brexit referendum. That peak is the Brexit referendum. Then they eased a bit off afterwards because they didn't need to push it so much. This was entirely driven by the media publishing articles. They've recently been doing so again, fueled by the Tories' nonsense Rwanda plan. They're not currently publishing a lot of articles about the problems of joining Schengen or the euro because although they fear it, they know there's no immediate threat. When they do, they'll start ramping up the fear articles again, and it will have cut through with some members of the public. So we need to get in early. We can start those conversations before they do. Third problem is that people lean too much on opinion polls. They'll say, oh, look, a majority of people agree with this. But their link with electoral strategy is far too tenuous. Political parties don't themselves poll for overall public opinion. They poll for premium voter opinion, the views of their target voters. But we almost never see these polls because the ones that are published cover general public opinion. Why would the general public be interested in polls that just cover a few types of voter? Sometimes we get divided into voter types, but by the good pollsters, of course. But even that doesn't tell us about target voters, the important swing voters who determine the outcome of elections. We simply don't have that information. You know, we'll be able to tell when it swings in our favour because we'll start to see more Conservative MPs talking up the prospect. Right now, it's just Tobias Ellwood, assuming he hasn't joined Labour by the time this video goes out. But every time Ellwood says we should have a talk about the single market or the EU in general, his colleagues all pretend to look the other way. When a few more start piping up as well, when we see Conservative groups joining the annual Rejoin March, then we will know that the tide is really turning. And the tide just doesn't have to wait for more Leave voters to pop the clogs. We can advance the timescale by talking to people. Because the political reality is that there are two ways of generating more support for rejoining. The first is just sitting back. The Grim Reaper will do it for us with the natural passage of time, giving us that majority by removing more Leave than Remain voters from the electoral register. Second is talking, persuading people to change their mind. There's nothing we can do about the first. It's a static sort of timeline, but we can influence the second. Because consider what Scully is saying when he says Brexit voters are dying off. He's recognising that Brexiteers have not made the case for Brexit. They've not won new people to the cause. They're not persuading the young people coming of voting age that Brexit's a good idea. That's hence the fear of Generation Z. Their support is entirely down to those who supported it from the start and the public narrative that continues in the media. It will change. Labour will shift the dial to an extent by simply giving 16 and 17-year-olds the vote nationally. They already have it in Scotland, more recently in Wales. Once this is UK-wide, you instantly add a chunk of mostly pro-EU voters into the mix. Obviously, we need pollsters to cotton onto it as well. It sounds obvious, but I happen to know that several pollsters at least, I've asked directly, are not even taking account of the fact that more Leave voters than Remain voters have died. They just simply don't take account of it in their polls. Which means that many, maybe even all polls, are skewed slightly in Brexit's favour. But the bottom line is, in terms of what to do, it's be visible. So if you are able to join pro-EU events where, do that and keep having conversations with people, that is how it's going to work. I know some conversations are difficult. I'm not, don't go causing aggro. It's still, there's very raw wounds in some relationships over Brexit. I get that. But where you can have those conversations. But hopefully the next general election can be the point at which we start to make much more progress. That and obliterating the Tories. Because right now, the EU wouldn't even consider moves to rejoin because the Tories will just say, well, the second we're back in power, we'll just scrap the whole thing. EU can't be arsed with that. So we either change the mind of the Tories or we just destroy them utterly. That's an option. But there we are. Those are my thoughts. If you enjoyed the video, please subscribe for further content and click the like button. You can also sign up for memberships if you'd like to support the channel further. Thanks for watching, and until next time, I'll see you later.